It's a documented phenomenon in human psychology. A subtle but persistent state of discontent often precedes a period of significant personal growth. You might recognize it as a low-frequency hum of dissatisfaction beneath the surface of your daily life. Perhaps you find yourself zoning out during meetings, not because you're bored, but because your focus is being pulled toward a question you haven't yet articulated. The truth is, this feeling is a signal. That inner friction you've been experiencing, that sense you're on the precipice of a major shift, isn't a glitch in your system. It's not a random psychological artifact or a mere coincidence that this message found you at this exact moment. A clear pattern is emerging, and your consciousness is beginning to register it. Most individuals are conditioned to suppress these moments. They sense the pull, feel the impending change, and immediately turn up the volume on their distractions, binge-watching a new series, endlessly refreshing their social media feeds, or burying themselves in work. They operate under the learned assumption that stability is synonymous with safety, that the familiar is inherently less dangerous than the unknown. But you perceive things differently. You are here because an integral part of you understands that what is approaching is not a threat to be neutralized. It's the very thing you've been unconsciously training for. Every obstacle you've overcome, every instance of self-doubt you've navigated, every time you prioritized evolution over equilibrium, it has all been preparation. Now, here is the critical insight most people miss about these transformational junctures. They don't announce their arrival with trumpets and formal invitations. They don't provide a clear roadmap or a detailed itinerary. Instead, their language is subtlety. They manifest in the quiet interludes of your day, in the brief hesitation before a choice is made, in that instantaneous internal yes that precedes any logical justification from your analytical mind. You've likely observed a decreased tolerance for superficiality recently. Engaging in small talk feels like a significant energy expenditure. Feigning interest in trivial matters feels like trying to speak a language you've forgotten. An urgent need for authenticity and substance is emerging, not because you're becoming antisocial or difficult. This is your consciousness outgrowing its previous environment. Your internal barometer is being recalibrated, pointing you toward interactions and pursuits that nourish you on a foundational level, rather than those that simply occupy your time. And this recalibration can be jarring, because the very things that once provided satisfaction now seem hollow. Perhaps you've begun to reevaluate choices made years ago that once felt absolute. The career trajectory that seemed so practical, the relationships that offered a sense of security, the objectives you pursued because they were impressive on paper, not because these things are inherently flawed, but because they were selected by a version of you that no longer exists. The power of these moments of inquiry is that they do not stem from a place of confusion, but from a place of heightened clarity. You are finally perceiving reality with unfiltered vision, rather than through the distorted lens of societal expectations or your own obsolete self-concept. Something fundamental is shifting within your life right now. Even if your external reality appears identical to how it was 6 months ago, the most profound changes often occur in the invisible realm, in the way you interpret data, in your responses to adversity, in the very quality of your presence. I'll pause for a moment to say what's customary in these situations. If these ideas resonate with you and you want this dialogue to continue and grow, the best way to support it is by subscribing. It's not just a number, but a signal to the algorithms that something valuable is happening here. When you are in solitude with your thoughts, you are cultivating a new relationship with uncertainty. Where it once felt like a threat, it's beginning to feel like a landscape of possibility. Where it previously triggered anxiety, it's starting to spark a sense of anticipation. This is not because the nature of uncertainty has changed, but because your framework for engaging with the unknown has been fundamentally upgraded. This is the juncture where many people become stalled. They feel the transformation initiating. They sense a major event on the horizon, but they attempt to micromanage the timeline. They demand to know the exact date of its arrival, the precise form it will take, and the specific steps of its unfolding. They seek guarantees for a process that is inherently organic, but timing is not a mechanism you can manipulate or accelerate. True timing, universal, systemic timing, operates on a frequency entirely separate from your impatience or your strategic planning. It incorporates countless variables you cannot perceive, interconnections you are unaware of, and preparations occurring behind the scenes. Consider the last time a truly remarkable event occurred in your life. Something that felt serendipitous, but was exactly what you required at that moment. Looking back, can you trace the series of seemingly disconnected events that had to align perfectly for that to happen? The accidental meeting that sparked a new venture. The flight delay that placed you in the right location at the right time. The professional failure that redirected your path toward something far more suitable. That is the operating model. While you are focused on a single variable, the system is orchestrating a much larger, more complex equation. While you are fixated on the when, all the necessary components are already moving into their optimal positions. While you try to decode the how and the what, the universe is arranging circumstances you could not have conceptualized and would not have known to request. The primary challenge is to maintain trust in the process when the complete picture is not visible. It is learning to execute the task directly in front of you without needing to understand its connection to the larger narrative. It is learning to follow your intuitive data points even when, and especially when, they contradict your logical analysis. There is a distinction between passive waiting and active waiting. Passive waiting is standing at a station hoping a train will eventually arrive. Active waiting is the discipline of an athlete in the off-season, continuously training, refining skills, and maintaining peak condition for a game that has not yet been scheduled. Active waiting means staying fully receptive to what is emerging while remaining completely engaged with your present reality. Right now, you are in a period of active waiting. You can feel a force building, an energy gathering momentum, something preparing for its unveiling. Your function is not to identify it or to force its arrival. Your function is to continue evolving into the person who will be ready for it. The readiness you are building is not about possessing all the information or feeling entirely equipped. True readiness is the developed capacity to respond to whatever emerges with presence and authenticity, rather than with fear and resistance. It is about reinforcing your internal structure so that when the catalysts for change arrive, you adapt without fracturing. You may have also noticed an evolution in your decision-making. Where you once engaged in exhaustive pro-con analyses, you are now starting to use a more intuitive, somatic approach to choices. There is a knowing that originates from a deeper source than your cognitive chatter. This transition from purely analytical processing to a more integrated, feeling-based navigation is a key indicator that you are approaching a significant threshold. It signifies that you are developing a deep trust in your internal guidance system, the same system that has been trying to get your attention with that persistent feeling of restlessness. But here is where the process intensifies. The closer you get to what is trying to emerge, the more formidable the internal resistance can become. Not resistance from the universe, but from the parts of your own psyche invested in maintaining the status quo. The ego, the fear-based mind, the inner voice convinced that security lies only in the familiar. This resistance can manifest as a sudden, acute wave of doubt about your entire path. It can appear as old, destructive patterns resurfacing with surprising force. You might find yourself reverting to behaviors or emotional states you believed you had long since transcended. This is not a sign of regression or failure. It is proof of progress. Think of it like a major software upgrade on a complex system. Before the new operating system can launch, the computer must first shut down all old, conflicting programs. This shutdown sequence can feel like a system crash, but it is a necessary part of the upgrade process. Your internal landscape is undergoing a similar reboot. The key is to recognize that this temporary disruption is not random chaos. It is purposeful reorganization. During this phase, you may notice that certain relationships begin to feel different. People who were once central to your life might feel distant, not because of any specific conflict, but because you are now operating on a different frequency. The conversations that once felt engaging may now seem superficial. The activities that used to provide you with joy might now feel empty. This is not a judgment on those people or activities. It is an acknowledgement that you have outgrown certain containers for your experience. The loneliness that can accompany this phase is potent, but it is also temporary. You are occupying the liminal space between the person you were and the person you are becoming, between the connections that no longer align and the ones that are yet to materialize. This in-between state can feel isolating, but it is also sacred ground. It is the very crucible of transformation. What is emerging for you will not conform to anyone else's narrative. It will not fit the predefined templates of success or fulfillment offered by society, your family, or the voices that have shaped your expectations. It will be uniquely yours, which means it may not be understood by others, at least not initially. The courage to honor what is true for you even when it defies external validation, is the most critical quality to cultivate right now. This is not about rebellion. It is about allegiance to the deepest level of your own being, even when that authenticity challenges the established order. Your life is preparing to become an expression of something that has been dormant within you for a very long time. Something that has waited patiently as you acquired the necessary lessons and developed the strength required to manage what comes next. The timing is not yours to control, but how you show up for it is entirely within your power. The signs are all around you now. Not the dramatic, cinematic signs, but the subtle ones that communicate directly with your core. The repeating numerical patterns that catch your attention, the synchronicities in conversation, the books that seem to open to the exact page you need. So if you feel that quiet pull, that internal knowing that something significant is stirring, trust it. You are not fabricating this. You are becoming aware of a truth that has always been present. Your life has been preparing you for this moment. The restlessness you've been carrying is not a problem to be solved. It is an invitation. The questioning is not confusion. It is clarity emerging. The sense that you're on the edge of something new isn't anxiety. It's anticipation. And to conclude, a small exercise. If you've reached this point and felt an internal shift, solidify that state. Write a phrase in the comments. My next chapter is beginning. Let this not be just a comment, but your personal affirmation. The point from which your change begins. What is meant for you is already on its way.